My master's degree is as a reading specialist and as a history teacher. And literacy specialists are like, what? That's amazing. You know, I love literature. I'm a big reader. My family's a big reader. And so I was in this cohort for my master's degree of all women. And the big topic was boys don't read. And so my comment was, well, what are you giving them to read? I don't want to read that either. And so not that comics are gender specific, but that led me down this path. And my professors were very open-minded. And so I went up doing my whole thing on engaging students through comic books. And it actually happens to work out with my own children. My son was, that term, reluctant reader. But once we went the comic book route, boom, we were there, and my daughters as well. And so after that, it took me a few years until I finally started bringing my passion for comic books. And I've heard everybody say that, engagement, connection. And so I had a student that I had to start talking about Miles Morales. And here was this African-American student that I couldn't reach. And through this comic book, suddenly he started hanging out after class. And we started talking. And so when I went to the comic book store, I would buy him one. And it meant the world to him. And so he's one of these kids in the hallway that we know who they are. But when he sees me, it's hello, Mr. Swin. And he still stops by, and we still talk about these things. And I said, here's a way to reach kids that I can't reach. And it's through my own nerd culture. And he wasn't very upfront about it. And now, all of a sudden, the last few years, being nerd is almost, it's being cool. You know? And so I teach a comic book classroom for kids to come in. It's always packed, and it's an amazing experience. And then I had a staff developer, a literacy guy, who said, you know, you really should get out on social media. And I think teachers, you probably would agree, we're just naturally introverts. We do what we do in our classrooms, and we do it very well, but we don't brag about it. And I said, no, that's like a millennial thing. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to brag. And who wants to listen to me anyway, right? So I started tweeting about it. And I started putting together, I said, you know what, there's nothing out there that says, here's all these things you can use. So that's where I first started. And I have business cards. Wow, I'm a teacher, I have a business card. A listing of all different things that you can use. I'll be happy to hand it to you afterwards. And specific lesson plans. If you're a teacher, that's what you want from this. What can I use tomorrow? There's stuff on there, by all means. And so all of a sudden, it just took a couple of years. I started blogging about it. And then this PBS editor just happened to read my blog about connecting to that student. And she asked me, could we write an article? And this was about 3 months ago, and here I am, right? It's amazing. This is the second time I've done this. I'm really nervous. I'm sorry I'm talking too fast. But it's an amazing way to connect to our students. And if I can, just read maybe 2 quotes. My students, so we've shared this journey together through social media, and so they have a real audience. And so some of my students wrote, and I teach 9 through 12. I teach academic students, IEP students, 5 and 4 students, gifted students, advanced placement students, and honor students. I've taught economics, AP Econ. Yes, I brought comic books into that. And so you can use them anywhere. And so some of the comments were, comics actually have insight into doing class. I sometimes borrow comic books to gain more knowledge on a topic like Night by Wiesel in English class. I wanted to gain more insight, so I borrowed comics and received more knowledge than I've ever had about what was happening during the Jewish Holocaust. Connection. In my opinion, it stays in my head longer. Whenever I think of a superhero now, I think of a point in history or a controversy that is going on in the world. And lastly, to the artist, students said, you showed us that by using visual artwork and dialogues, comic artists were able to voice their opinions about current social issues to the public in a captivating and visually appealing way. I respect comic artists even more now. And so we've just started going with this, and now all of a sudden next year, we're teaching the graphic novel March, and I'm hoping in a couple hours I can get Congressman John Lewis to sign that for us. And I'm going to be co-teaching this with a teacher in Norway. So the power of social media and comics is just simply amazing.
I had a specific question about March, because it's one of those things where I love history, I studied history right about that time period, and I read this graphic novel and pretty much got moved to tears because it's just more powerful, and it's his personal story, but just a graphic way of telling it. Have you noticed that about your students? Does that kind of stuff just hit them harder? Do they really get it better?
It does. The first graphic novel I used unofficially, and I'm lucky I have an open-minded school district, and so I get away with a lot of things. But it was Kyle Baker's Nat Turner. and here's a graphic novel with really no words in it at all. And so I give this to the students, and I say, you need to read it, and you tell me what it means. And they said, well, Mr. Smythe, so ninth graders, they want to be told. No, that's not the way my classroom works. You tell me, what's the evidence here? And so we start going through here, and don't you know, they say, well that's a panel, the most important panel of the whole book when we talk. Well, that's the Europeans that are taking the Africans. And I said, is it? Look closer. And here it was Africans. And how do you know that? And let's talk about this. And you get students, they don't want to say things like black or white or African American. And all of a sudden you're having these conversations, and so you have to set that classroom culture. And it's very impactful for them. And then they have to draw what they think happens next. So whether it's a stick figure, I can't draw. I share, I would love to find an artist that, there's ideas that I'd have for graphic novels too. But it hits them in a way. Yeah, maybe I'll peer over something. But yes, it's a very powerful medium to use with the students. You can do more in one panel than you can do in an entire book.
Well, he was talking about the various things that are